The dynasty ended with fragmentation. There were different factions claiming to be king in the north. And I mentioned that we're going to have Egypt united again, but this time from a surprise place, the Nubians, right? I sort of gave away my punchline that it's a Nubian who's going to come north and unite. But let's talk about who the Nubians were, what they were to the ancient Egyptians. Now remember, Nubia is a relatively modern term. The ancient Egyptians never used that word. They referred to the south, what we would call the Sudan probably, as Kush. Kush. It's also biblical Kush. Now, there was a kind of love-hate relationship with the Nubians, and the Nubians loved and hated the Egyptians. Nubia was the source of gold. And Egypt always went south for their gold to Nubia. But they almost always called, when they referred to the Kushites, they always said, vile Kush. Vile Kush. Mainly because they were a foreign country. Any country was vile so-and-so, wretched so-and-so. But the Nubians for 1,000 years had been under the thumb of the Egyptians, mainly because the Nubians were always divided into tribes, as much of Africa is today. There's not a kind of, togetherness there. And it's many tribes warring with each other, so they never could really get together and fight off the Egyptians. So the Nubians had always been divided. Now, with Egypt having all these troubles in the north, with them being divided, worried about outside attackers, the Nubians had been allowed to grow independent. They weren't going south a lot and beating up the Nubians, so they were almost taking the titles of kings themselves, these Nubians. Right? Now, how did the Nubians view the Egyptians? Well, after 1,000 years, they kind of adopted their ways. For example, Egyptians, when they went south, very often built temples to Amun. So there were southern temples in Nubia to Amun and to other gods. And the Nubians eventually worshipped at these temples. It was probably a status thing. Hey, I'm not just Nubian, I'm like an Egyptian, something like that. So the Nubians had this love-hate relationship with the Egyptians. Anyway, we are going to get a Nubian king marching north and uniting Egypt once again. His name is P. P-I-Y-E is how we usually spell it. He's also called Pianki. Pianki. He ruled in Nubia at Napata. Now, Napata is far south, Fourth Cataract, just above the Fourth Cataract. So it's really quite far south. But he, at some point, obviously unites the Nubians. The tables are turned. Now we're going to get the Nubians united. And if you'll remember, the Egyptians in the north are divided. Just the opposite of what it had been for 1,000 years. So he gets his Nubian force. Now remember, Nubians are known as bowmen. Nubia was often called the land of the bow. So these people are skilled at military maneuvers. The Egyptians had even hired many of them as mercenaries in their armies. So Pianki, P, either way you want to say it, marches north. What does he do, though? Before he gets to the Delta area where it's all happening, he stops at Thebes, the religious center of Egypt, and celebrates the Opet festival, the most sacred of all festivals there, when the gods Amun, Mut, and Khans are taken from Karnak temple to Luxor temple. He celebrates the festival. He's an Egyptian, right? He's saying, I'm an Egyptian. Celebrates the festival at Thebes, and then he has 400 miles or so to go north. And he fights a confederation of these Egyptian kings. They're sort of all maybe getting together to fight the Nubians. And listen to this confederation, how fractionated Egypt was at this point in the north, right? You had Asarkhan IV at Tanis, if you'll remember. Euput was at Leontopolis. You had Tefnakht at Sais, also in the Delta. And you had Nimlat at Hermopolis. You've got 4 centers where people are sort of claiming to be kings, right? This is the 23rd dynasty, 24th dynasty. They're not really dynasties. The real dynasty we're going to get is the 25th, that is Nubian. He defeats them, right? They're divided. He's got to defeats them. And he goes back home. He goes back to Nubia. Right? And at Gebel Barkal, a site in Nubia, he erects a stela, a victory stela, Kings always did that. Remember, Thutmose III goes north at Megiddo. We even have the Merneptah stela, right, where he talks about Israel, its seed is no longer. Nubian erects a victory stela at Gebel Barkal. Now, Gebel Barkal is a really interesting monument. A good friend of mine is the excavator for that area. I'm going to tell you an interesting story about Gebel Barkal. Gebel in Arabic means mountain, right? So you know it's a mountain. It's a mountain that, in a sense, is divided in two parts. It's a large mountain, tall, but there's a part that kind of breaks off towards the top, a separate part of an outcropping. And if you look at it, it looks a little like a cobra. And remember, the cobra, the uraeus, is the sign of the pharaoh, right? You've got this cobra on Tutankhamun's brow, in the mask, for example, always protecting the pharaoh. It looks like a cobra. Now, Tim Kendall, who is the friend of mine who excavates there, he looked at this thing and he thought it looked like a cobra too, and many people had noted that. And Tim also noted that sometimes when Gebel Barkal was written in hieroglyphs, there was a cobra included in the hieroglyphs, which suggests that they knew that this was a cobra and they sort of exploited this feature, or maybe even carved it that way. But nobody had actually looked at this cobra part of the mountain in modern times. Now, Tim Kendall wanted to get right up to it. He wanted to see what it looked like. And he learned mountain climbing skills and became the first one in modern times to get up to this cobra part of the mountain of Gebel Barkal. And what he found there were nail holes in the area where apparently, in ancient times, the pharaohs had put a metal plaque. Now, the metal plaque was long gone, but it must have had hieroglyphs in the name of the king, so this was undoubtedly a sacred mountain because of the cobra. He also found little holes in the mountain on both sides, so to speak. When I say both sides, I mean in the outcropping of the cobra and the main part of the mountain, where apparently the workmen had put boards across so they could make scaffolding to carve this thing. So it was an interesting excavation, but this is where our man, Pianki, comes and erects his victory stela. And he says a couple of interesting things on the victory stela. One is that he had the king of Egypt, and he calls him Nimlot, one of the kings, one of the ones who's claiming king, brought down to him. And in front of Amun of Napata, now that's where he's ruling from, and he has his own Amun. There's Amun of Thebes, Amun of this, Amun of that. He has Amun of Napata watching, and you see Nimlot bowing down in front of Pianki, right? So he's showing that Egypt is bowing down to him. The other thing that I sort of like about his victory stela is this guy was a horse lover. And he mentions on the victory stela that what bothered him most when he conquers these guys in the north is that they mistreated their horses. And he said, and there's a great quote on the victory stela. I'll read it to you. It's a wonderful thing. Remember, he has just conquered, and he claims that all of Egypt is his, which in fact it is. So everything is his property. And he says, the stela says, His Majesty proceeded to the stables of the horses and quarters of the foals. When he saw that they had suffered hunger, he said, I swear as Re loves me, and as my nostrils are rejuvenated with life, it is more grievous in my heart that my horses have suffered hunger than any evil deed thou hast done. I said, talking to the Egyptian king. So it really bothered him that the horses were mistreated. A real horse lover. But anyway, he has this victory stela, and now he's going to...
That is very interesting. So, as a people, we who claim Nubia have had a love of animals since the beginning. Specifically, horses. Now, for decades, all you see and hear about is these white cowboys. Then, you start hearing about the black cowboys. But society, mainstream media keeps trying to tell you, oh, that's fake. That's fake news. There's no such thing as a black cowboy. Even when you have proof, they still want to deny it. That's like saying the sky is pink. No, it's not. Yes, it is. The sky is blue. No, it's not. It's pink. But I'm looking at the sky. You're looking at it wrong. What the hell? Look. Clearly, since the dawn of modern man, even in ancient times, places like Egypt, empires like Egypt, have always sought help from outside sources. Even in America, World War I, World War II, every conflict they have had, they've always had to rely on black soldiers. Even in the Civil War, always had to rely on black soldiers. But yet, black soldiers are not held to the same grandeur, the same what's the word I'm looking for? They're not held to the same level of respect as white soldiers. That's not nice. So here the professor is telling us that, yeah, Egypt was great, but Egypt had problems. And sometimes Egypt had to call on their neighbors to help them out. And in this case, they called on Nubia. Nubia was known for their warriors. Now, I don't know if they had anything to do with the slave trade. That would be kind of depressing. But I doubt it. Nubia's on the East Coast, and the other countries that were involved on the West Coast. But yeah, man, Nubia. And then when I found out that they were called the Bowmen, like bow, what? Like bow and arrow? Like, yes, my guy. Yes. The bow and arrow. The coveted Southern tradition of white men going out in the woods, killing game with a bow and arrow. Remember, friends, family, remember, white people come from Europe. They come from Europe. You only got a certain tribes of people in Europe that actually know how to use a bow and arrow. And who's to say that their ancient ancestors didn't get it from our ancient ancestors? Because we all know black folks like to travel. They did it then, and they do it now. We like to travel. We don't mind being at home, but sometimes you get that itch. You like to move around, travel a little bit, and then you come back home. Same thing with the 25th dynasty. They was like, hey, Egypt in trouble. I know we got our differences, but it's like having a bad relationship with your brother. Then you find out your brother in trouble, and you like, to hell with this. That's my brother. I know we got our problems, but at the end of the day, that's still my brother. I'm going to help him. That's how Egypt and Nubia were. They've been in and out of each other's lives for thousands of years. Thousands. That's a long-term relationship. And when it came down to it, Nubia said, not today. What you're not going to do is think you're going to take over Egypt and run it into the ground. That's what you're not going to do. This man, this king, left home, went to Egypt, kicked ass, and then went back home. And the next time I hear y'all talking some smack, I'm going to come back and beat your ass again. I have an appreciation for the 25th dynasty. In fact, I've decided that my corporate name for my media company that I want to build is going to be the 25th dynasty. Let's continue.
Consolidate Egypt, right? How does he do it? Same way everybody's been doing it for hundreds of years. You put your family members in key positions, right? Now he takes his sister, Amenartis, and he makes her, the title is Divine Adoratress of Amun. So she's a little bit like the high priest almost, the high priestess, something like that, of Amun at Karnak, keeping the power in the family, keeping the wealth of the priesthood, right? And he rules from the Napata, and he does a very interesting thing. I think because he really didn't want to be in Egypt much. When he conquered those factions in the north, he let the individual kings, the petty princes, rule their areas. He left them in power. He said, okay, we're united now, I'm king, but you can rule your areas. I think he wanted them as sort of on his side. He didn't want this constant back and forth, right? So he rules. He is buried when he dies in the south at El Kuru, which is a cemetery in Nubia. And it's interesting. He's buried in a pyramid. Right? Now he's going back to the old kingdom. Now, if you look at Nubian pyramids, they're really quite different from the Great Pyramid of Egypt. First of all, they're much smaller, maybe 100 feet high max. But they're also much steeper, right? So they sort of don't have quite the same, but there's a tradition. He wants to be buried in a pyramid like the great ones. Other traditions, he has Ushakti statues, right? He has Ushakti statues. But there are some Nubian traditions too. He's buried on a bed. Nubians were buried on a bed, right? Also, this horse lover, right? Nubian kings were buried with their horses in an upright position with their chariot behind them, ready for action in the next world, right? So he's a mixture of the two cultures. He's in a pyramid with Ushaktis, with all this, but also there are some Nubian holdovers. Now, he is succeeded by his brother, Shabaka. Now, this is a tradition that's Nubian. You're succeeded by your brother, if you have a brother. So Shabaka takes over, and we have, from the reign of Shabaka, one of the most interesting documents in 3,000 years of Egyptian history, the Shabaka stone. Now, the stone looks strange. You can see it. It's in the British Museum. If you look at it, first its shape is kind of different. It's kind of squarish. And it's got a hole in the middle of it. Right? It's inscribed. It's got an inscription all over it. But it's got this hole in the middle, and it's kind of badly worn in the middle. It was a stela originally that Shabaka erected, our big round-top stelas. But in the 19th century, some Egyptian farmers found it, and they recut it to use it as a grindstone. So this stone, for decades, was being used as a grindstone, and it wore away most of the inscription, right? And it's unfortunate, because this is an absolutely unique document. But enough of it is there that we can read it. Let me tell you what it says. It's sometimes been called the philosophy of a Memphite priest. It's philosophical. Now remember, when we talked about what kind of thinking the Egyptians engaged in, we said, sure, they did religion, sure, they did mythology, but there wasn't much evidence for philosophy. This is our evidence, the Shabaka stone. Now first, it begins with a wonderful intro. Shabaka says, I found the writings of the ancients damaged, and I restored it better than it was. In other words, this is a copy of some ancient document that Shabaka found, viewed it as his heritage, and he restored it, put it on stone, and put it up in front of a temple. This stone tells a version of the myth of creation, but it's very close to biblical language. How did the universe begin in this way? Well, remember that the chief god of Memphis for centuries and centuries was Ptah. And Ptah was viewed as a creator. And this tells how Ptah created the world. He thought it, and then he set it on his tongue, and it became real. It's practically in the beginning was the word. He says it on his tongue, and the world became. It's pretty abstract thinking. This is the Shabaka stone. Absolutely unique, but you can...
Shabaka stone. Shaba. Okay. It tells about the creation story. It says he put it on his tongue and it became real. Modern day translation, the Holy Bible, he spoke it and it became real. So, during all this excavation that they were doing, while black people were enslaved in America, they literally deciphered the ancient language, ancient religion, put it into a new format, and fed it to us. Well, your God wants you to do this, and your God wants you to do that. And if you don't, then your life gonna be miserable. Really? In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was good. But the Word did not belong to white people. According to the professor, it was to the African people. It was to Nubian people specifically. So some people might say, oh, well, I don't really believe in religion. I don't really believe in the Bible. Okay, all right. Some people say that a lot of these people in the Bible probably never existed. We've already come to the conclusion. By now, we all should have come to the conclusion that the Bible itself is real. The names might not be real, but the message in the Bible is real. It actually happened. Somebody actually wrote it down. But you know how ignorant white people are. They mess up everything they touch. So when they were translating it, they took liberties with our cultural religions. That's a shame. It shouldn't have happened that way. But it did. So we've learned that Nubians had a love of horses. Nubians were skilled in archery. Archery. Before it became a thing. Archery. I say black people, invented archery. White people get so pissed when black people come into a sport and just dominate. They get all in their feelings. How could this happen? I thought they weren't talented. How could this happen? Well, silly white people, if you're listening, and I want you to listen. I want you to listen. That's because our ancient ancestors created it. We created it. We made bread, we made beer, we made archery before it was a thing. We created most of the known universe as far as Earth is concerned. Somebody came along and took the idea, ran with it, and they never gave credit to where they got it from. They passed it off as theirs. That's appropriation in the worst way. I don't mind you using my shit. But when people ask you where you got it from, tell the truth. It ain't yours. You wouldn't got it. You wouldn't have it if it hadn't been for me. If it hadn't been for my people. Like, really? We had our own set of pyramids, y'all. Are you listening to what I'm saying? We had our own style of pyramids. Egypt wasn't the only one that had pyramids. Egypt wasn't the only place that had wealth. It was the most well known, but they wasn't the only ones. Nubia we had our own shit. And when the shit hit the fan, who did Egypt call? Who did they call? Nobody. They couldn't. Most of their allies were gone, except for one. The one dude, the one country that they always getting into it with back and forth. Nubia. Nubia had their back. And then, a further note of interest, ladies, ain't no man gonna rule me, and men ain't shit, black men ain't shit. No. Stop listening to the bull crap. Stop it. This man, this king, had a brother who succeeded him. And during the reign of this royal family, the sister, they didn't tell the sister she could, well, you're a woman, you need to stay at home. You don't need to be out. They didn't know. They gave her a position. And it wasn't no bullshit position. They gave her a very important position. I keep trying to tell y'all, black women in ancient times were just as respected as the men. We never had a problem getting along. It was the white Europeans who were treating their women like shit. That ain't got nothing to do with us. So please, sisters, please get off your high horse. Stop thinking you can do everything without us. That's not true. Stop being delusional. Check out your history. Ancient black history is not just for the fellas, it's for the females too. When we succeeded, we took care of our women. We asked for their opinion. We asked for their help. Hell, y'all even had high positions in the royal family, in the royal court. Some of y'all were even queens. Outright. So, this idea that can only succeed in life if you don't have a man around is bullshit. That's straight bullshit. Egypt respected their women. Nubia respected their women. It's a black thing. And we need to get back to doing things the way they should be done in our community. We work together to bring about a cohesiveness in our community. We look out for each other. And I'm gonna put it out there. Black folks fought other black folks. But you know what? Even in modern times, you can't take everybody with you. Okay? Let's just put that out there. You can't take everybody with you. Some people's gonna be scared to move. Some people's gonna be jealous and want to tear you down. So you can't take everybody with you. Sometimes you gotta leave folks behind. Sometimes you gotta sit up. Sometimes in life, your adversary is from your own house. And when that happens, you got to sit that person down, whether they like it or not. And sometimes it might be by force. If this one black person or this small group of black people are not for the greater good of the community, to hell with them. They need to sit their butt down somewhere, even if we have to make them sit down. Because let's face it, even Malcolm X talked about the house nigga and the field nigga. So that right there tells you that you got black people that's for you, and you got black people that's against you. You got black people that's being used by ignorant ass racist white people that wants to tell you, oh, there's no such thing as racism. Oh, racism isn't a thing. It's not that bad. Fool. So dead black people hanging from trees and poles in the middle of the street, that was just a recreation for white people? Oh, we weren't racist. We were just bored. Really? Hang your ass up there. Ain't this about a racism ain't real? It ain't that big of a deal. But there's somebody like Nick Cannon make a joke. He say something about some Jewish people, and they end his whole career. But you saying racism ain't a thing? Oh, I guess the only thing that matters is if you're Asian or you Jewish. Wow. I don't agree. And now you got this non-binary bullshit. Now you got this, I identify as non-binary. I identify as she, they. Really? I don't agree. Again, I don't agree. I identify as a descendant of slaves. I identify as a descendant of the African continent. I identify as a black male. I don't know what else to tell you. That's how I identify. We had multiple multiple kingdoms that were rich in wealth and knowledge. Egypt and Nubia were two of those. They were builders. They were warriors. And when we came to America, what did we do? What happened when we got to America? You think the white people don't know what we were? They know about our greatness. That's why they didn't want us to learn how to read and write. Because every time we put our mind to it, we excel at anything we do. Golf, tennis, basketball, baseball, stock car racing, NASCAR. A lot of people would have laughed me out the room years ago when I used to watch NASCAR. I felt bad about it. I honestly felt bad. I would never tell anybody back then that I was into watching NASCAR, because all you saw was white faces. Yeah, a couple of rappers mentioned race car drivers in their song, but the common black man, nah. Then we find out that even in NASCAR, there were black race car drivers. And they just got pushed to the side. 20, 30 years after the fact, then somebody want to say, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember reading that document. Yeah, he did win that race. Ooh, but he didn't get the money because he was black. He didn't get his trophy because he was black. No, that's not why. He didn't get he didn't get his accolades because some ignorant white man was in charge. That's why. When you got ignorant people in charge, that's when other good people have to suffer. And then the thing became, well, we can't get to them outright, so maybe if we convince one of their own to go in and help us out, then we'll know how to fight them. Never fails. It never fails. When they can't figure out a way to bring us down, they get one of our own. Well, you know you need some money. You know you need to take care of your family. Don't worry about the rest of them. Just get us the information. We ain't asking you to kill nobody. Nah, just set somebody up for failure. Just set people up for failure. We ain't asking you to kill nobody. Like, why? Then after the deed is done, they're walking around like, well, I had to feed my family. I had to do what I had to do. But it resulted in your brother being killed. It resulted in the community being assaulted. So I hope you go to your grave with a clear conscience. Because if you don't, it should eat you up inside. And I couldn't care less. We, as a people, have a strong lineage to wealth and knowledge. We need to tap into that spirit of success and use it to build ourselves back up. We have proven how resilient we are. We have proven how badass we are time and time again. But the problem that I see is that we let too many people interfere with our progress. We let outsiders interfere with our progress, and we let traitors interfere with our progress. Those who would align themselves with the very people that's trying to stop our flow. And yes, I'm gonna put it out there. Some of those traitors are our elders. Our elders. And I say that because instead of them teaching us how to fight the good fight, they wanted us to be submissive because they didn't want us to die. Oh, you just wanted me to be humiliated through the streets. You wanted me to bring shame to my name. As long as I'm alive, you'd rather me be a... You would rather me be somebody's bitch than to raise me to be a man. Really? That's what you think? That's what you think? You so scary. Oh, don't do this. Don't do that. You know, God wants you. No, no, no. Don't bring God into it. Don't you dare bring God into it. And I'll tell you why I say that. They don't have the right to bring God into it because God created the world and the universe out of chaos. I know this for a fact. How do I know? Because from a scientific perspective, astral bodies slammed into each other, causing massive destruction. But in the midst of that, dare I say it, in the midst of that chaos, something beautiful was made. Something beautiful was made. A woman has labor pains, stomach tossing and turning. There's a living creature inside of her. She gives birth. She raises this entity, this child. And all that pain that she went through, all that chaos in her belly was worth it. And you know it's worth it because she always talks about her child. Oh, I'm so happy so-and-so did this and they accomplished this in school and now my child's all grown and my child became a lawyer. My child is a doctor. My child... It's not that they forgot all the pain that kid put them through. It's that the good times outweigh the bad times. And as a community, that's what we need to focus on. We need to make more good times than bad times. Hey, it's freezing cold in the wintertime, and I don't like the cold. But you got to go through it if you want to see another summer. Like I said, God created the heavens and the earth by speaking it into existence. And what does the Bible say? He created light, and this was good. The lesser light for the night and the greater light for the day. Is it not scientifically true that we have a solar system where our planet has a moon, and that there's also a sun, a greater light, and that not only that, but this sun has other planets surrounding it, like a family. Everybody's got their own characteristic. Everybody's got their own character. Mars has its own thing. Venus has its own thing. Jupiter has its own thing. Some kids are bigger than others. Some kids are shorter than others. Even from a mythological standpoint, people have retold the same story. So it's not that hard to figure out. Which brings me back to my point. We have always excelled at whatever we want to accomplish. But we did it together. It wasn't just the men, it was the men and the women. We did it together. 25th dynasty of Nubia marched into Egypt to clean house. Then they went back home. But they left people in charge. And they held those people accountable. Not only that, the ruling kings put their sister in charge of some stuff. Their sister, a cis woman, their sister, a female. She was in charge of some stuff. At the end of the day, we're a family. We're a community. We need to start acting like it. The only reason why we still in the shithole that we in is because we too busy trying to be individuals. That's part of the reason Africa has so much problems. This man is laying out all the information. Tribal. Stop thinking tribal. That's what I'm gathering from this. Even in Nubia, they were tribal. They were constantly bickering, fighting back and forth. But once they came together, they became a powerhouse. They could go into Egypt, kick their ass, and then go back home. To borrow a phrase, we need to make black great again. We built pyramids. We started whole sports before it was considered a sport. Then we came to America and we still showed how badass we were. Not just the men, but the women too. Think about it. And I'll get back with you.